So next up on the bench, I've got a Korg M1, and the reported problem is that there's no sound output from it. The guy who had it before me, he could use it for MIDI output to drive other gear. It's had a button gone there, so I guess it's a case of the switch started to go, so somebody started pushing harder until it all broke, I guess. Or it might just be wear and tear, to be fair. I don't know till I've opened it up. And then from what I've seen online, there's probably a battery issue, an internal memory battery that's gone and allowed it to lose all of its settings. So I'll just fire it up and see if I can do a factory reset with it on and see if I can get any sense out of it. So here goes with the power button then. I think there's a option to turn the brightness of that up. There you go. Init program battery low, so that's encouraging. So I'll open it up and have a look at the battery and then see what's involved in fixing this. I might have to buy some spare buttons if I can find some, or even make one if it's simple enough to do, but we'll see. So this is the first time I've had the base off then, and it's full of dust and stuff, but that's okay and all normal. But I just wanted to comment on how similar things look to the DX7 actually, and these were, I think, released just after the DX7s back in '88. So you've got the bias and the scaling of controls there, or adjusters there for the aftertouch, and the key bed, it looks identical actually. These little switches, so you've got two contacts and a bit that moves up and down with the keys there. So that looks, it looks like I could just lift that out and put that straight into a DX7, which is interesting. And then you've got the main board, which on the DX7 it actually also includes all the inputs and outputs. So they've got a separate board for the inputs and outputs there. I don't know what that is yet. I was going to flip it over and have a look. That's the power supply, obviously, which I think it's all working, looks in good shape. So I'll pull this one out and then flip it over, and the battery is somewhere. I think that's the battery holder, and it's not a solder-in job, it's just a slide-in battery holder on these, so should be nice and easy. So it looks kind of cool with the light coming through it, I guess. But so there's a whole nest of cables and things here, which obviously need to be. I probably don't need to undo them for the battery change there. That will just slide out. However, if I need to look deeper, which I do, because the switch PCB is that one, I believe, then I'll need to take all this out and go a bit further. But I'm going to do the battery first, and then see if it'll run, and see if I can put some patches on with SysX. So to take that battery out then, there's a bit of a gap at this side, which makes you think you might be able to poke it that way with a screwdriver, but don't do that. Actually get behind it from this end, push it that way, and then this edge will lift up and come out of the little holder there. So that's how you do that. And I'm pleased to say it's a CR2032 again, so I should have a few new ones of those around somewhere. So then I started to set up for doing the SysX, to put some sounds on this one, and it looks like the edit program button's not working. That LED's moved over there, so I think there's been some trauma in there or something. So I think before I do anything else, I'll have to get all those panels out, all those PCBs out, just to have a look. But at least it's not gone totally crazy on the screen yet, so I think it'll be okay. Next is a little PCM card there, so I'll take that one out. So this board then that I've just turned over, that chip there is a PCM 54HP, which is a digital to analog chip, which I think means it's the sound digital to analog output. And sure enough, there's some cables there going out to the output card underneath, so I'm pretty sure that's what that is, with a bit of sort of signal conditioning and maybe 1 or 2 op amps as well. So unlike the DX7 then, they were a bit kinder with the design of the display. So that PCB there is just separate to lift the display out, which is really nice. So if you have to replace it, you don't have to go disassembling that horrible assembly I had on the DX7. So I've just got this board loose then, and turning it over, you can see that little chap down there is relocated itself somehow. So that, oh, I see what's happened. So that comes with that assembly, or should do. It decided to detach itself. Oh, that's a shame. So these, I noticed through the hole that these actually switches are actually off center. Sorry about the camera work there. Off center, and that's because they're acted upon by the little tang there on the side of the button. So you can see that if somebody presses on that part of the button too hard, the reaction is on that little tang there, so it's going to shear that pin off. It is quite thin actually. Gosh, maybe they did want to sell a lot of spares for those. Not focusing very well, is it? So that, yeah, you can just see how thin that web is between the button and the piece that I'm holding. Obviously it needs to be flexible, but yeah, if you push that on that too hard, the switch post sits under there, and you push that and it will just shear that off. So I think that's probably what's happened, and I bet that happens to a lot of them as well. So I might be able to bridge that with something, glue something across there, or even melt it. I don't know, it's maybe too tricky. I'll see what's available online for spares though. And I'll check these buttons. I'm sure they're okay, but which actually no, one wasn't working, was it? So one of these wasn't working properly, so I'll check those. Have a look at some caps maybe as well, because they're probably quite old. So looking closely at where that has broken, there's sort of a flake. So if I move that, you can see the bit that pulled out or pulled off. It actually goes in between two pieces on the part that I'm holding. So it kind of tempting me to use a bit of glue in there, a bit of epoxy or something, just to build that back up. Obviously it can't be too stiff, because that'll just transfer the stress elsewhere and maybe help it to break in another way, I don't know, but I'm tempted to do that actually. So a bit of epoxy resin in there then mixed up, and it sort of didn't need any clamping or holding. I thought about putting it on some sticky tape, but it sort of sat there okay in the right shape, so quite pleased with that. So I'll just walk away from it now and see what it's like tomorrow in terms of flexibility. I think it should be enough. I mean, the movement on this part against the switch is quite small anyway, so I think we'll be fine. So my replacement tact switches have arrived then, so it's RS part 7581957, and just going around the board on these old ones then, they're not actually going to closed loop, they're sort of going down to sort of 3 to 7 ohms when you push the buttons down, and some are worse than others, but this, obviously the new ones completely close the circuit when you operate them, so pretty sure that's a good move then to change all of those on that board. So Korg had the great idea of adding an ashtray feature to the M1, and as you can see here, you would put the cigarette here and the ash would drop into this space here, and then when you use the modulation joystick, the ash would work its way into the synthesizer and be stored for emptying later on. Unfortunately, they didn't use a heat-proof material for this, and we got some sort of part of it that's melted there, so I need to sand that back, maybe put some filler in there and see what I can do, maybe spray it up again black afterwards. So let's have a look. So I've used some 600 grit abrasive paper just to break the surface of these parts. So these are the ones that have got the sort of the dinks in and a few scratches, which I'm going to fill with some sort of car body filler later on, but I just wanted to use the abrasive paper there to cut the surface and expose any other blemishes, so I know exactly where to put the filler later on. So I'll mix some of that up soon put it in and then sort of sand it back. So I used a file here to get the hot spots with the original plastic back in line, and then I'll put the filler in there and then sort of file and sand it back again, and then black spray on there to bring the colour back. So because all these switches are going to be scrapped, I'm not going to try and save any, and therefore I'm going to use these little snips to cut the legs to remove them, and then take the stumps out of the holes with the soldering iron later on. So they're all in then and looking okay. This is the other side, so all soldered on nicely. Need to tidy some of that flux up actually, where it's made a bit of a mess, but I'll do that with some IPA. I did actually have a bit of a struggle because there was too much solder over the hole, so I had to use some of this solder wick to sort of suck the solder off that board. And also the solder wick I got, actually it didn't have any flux in, so sometimes it was difficult to get that solder to sort of be absorbed, so I used some of that as well, which is I think that's just flux with some isopropyl alcohol as a solvent. So you just paint it on and it makes it more attractive to the solder. So they're all on now. I will check, hold it up to the light and check for cracks, because I know from experience that when these buttons start to fail, people just push harder and harder, and then they work a little bit, then they get even worse, and then they stop working altogether. But people push even harder, and then, as you saw earlier, it breaks the buttons, but it also can deform the board so much that it things can crack. So I'll hold it up to the light now and just check that, and then if it's okay, I'll call that done for now and put it in a safe place while I move on to the next bit. So moving on to the key bed then, I'm going to strip this completely, mainly to clean it up, but also I'll take the contact strip off and check the alignment of those little switches, because sometimes they can get a bit distorted over time. And also, in order to refit the keys, you want this out of the way, because the stems which contact with the switches can actually bend the switches up and kind of damage them really if they're in the way when you reinstall the keys. So I'll take this off. I'll also take this little scale and offset board, which is for the adjustment for the aftertouch strip there. I'll take that off and then see what it looks like underneath the keys. So that's the contact strip and the aftertouch PCB off then, and then you can't see it too well here, but just looking down those switches, you can see some are sort of a bit out of place, so they need just bending gently, very gently actually, because they're quite fragile, and sort of straightening up so it's all in line, and that will set the sort of velocity response in the right place as well. Just note, one culprit for keys not working is sometimes these diodes here actually fail, just due to their age really, and that can stop keys working. And what you should do really is just check all of these for diode behaviour all the way along, which I'm not actually going to do, because when I bought this, the ad said that there was nothing wrong with the key bed. It was used to sort of drive other things with MIDI, so I'm not too worried about the key bed at all. Just need to clean up, I think. So I'm pretty sure now that this key bed is the same that's used on the DX7s, and basically to get the keys off, there's a little hook there on the end of the key which you have to push the key backwards and then lift this end out as it comes out of the hole. Now that's prevented from happening by this bit of edging strip here, so you just pull that off and then push your key back. Bit tricky one-handed, and then it just pops out like that. And try not to lose that spring there. And that one stayed in place. Sometimes they ping out or fall on the floor or whatever, so it can be a bit of a tricky business. And then of course, you know, no surprise, there's a lot of dust there which needs cleaning out. And then this little post here which guides the key underneath needs a bit of grease on it. So there was some grease there, but a lot of it is sort of dried up over the years. The other thing that can happen with these is that the stop felt here underneath can get hard over time, and that can give you a noisy keyboard. This is not too bad, but sometimes you can see them online, they're quite clattery, and if you get a sort of a wire brush or a stiff brush, you can actually tease that back into life if it's not too bad, and then you're good to go. So that took all of about 5 minutes to take off all these keys, and as you can see, there's a lot of dust here which needs cleaning off, and then also more evidence of a smoker, I guess, which is interesting. So yeah, so that's the key bed, and that's as far as I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to clean it up now. There's no rust on it. Sometimes if you get drinks, well, there's a bit of rust actually. If you get drinks spilt on it, it can eat through the zinc coating here and cause a bit of rust. But you know, you just put some oil on it or something which doesn't smell, and then it's fine. It's fine. So yeah, bit of a brush off, and then I'm going to wash all these in some laundry detergent, I think, quickly, just to get all the dirt off of them. So while the keys are drying in the airing cupboard, I'm going to just look at this quickly. So this is the sort of original key bed design, if you like, and with this you've got basically a switch, or two switches if you like. So this one is closed at the moment, so this top leaf against the actual key spring here, and what happens is there's a little peg on the key, so when you push it down, it pushes that down, disengages or opens that switch, and then underneath you've got the same thing but acting in the opposite way, which closes the switch. So and what happens is the processor starts a clock running, so it scans all of these contacts sort of thousands of times a second, and then starts a clock running when this one opens, and then closes or stops the clock when it contacts on the other one, and that's where you get the sort of velocity control on the keyboard. So yeah, so it's not mega important, but some of these little switches, they've been from use or whatever, or maybe their original setting even, they're sort of a bit high or a bit lower, and you can actually bend them by hand. So this one here, that one there's a little bit high. You can actually just push it down until you feel it yield a bit, and that will sort of adjust that. You've got to be super careful. If you get it wrong, obviously it's you know, game over. But they're not that fragile really. I mean, on them you've got a, I'll zoom into that one, there's a, where am I going? So there's that, you've got a little bit of wire there, look, which gives it a high spot for the switch. So you've got Schmidt triggers in the circuitry which sort of debounces that switch, so it only gives you sort of high or low voltages on the output into the processor. But even so, they put a little wire there to give it a high spot, which is nice in the design. So yeah, you can bend these about a little bit, and bit of fluff there, look, and clean, and get them aligned. So that's how that works and how to do that. So back to the plastic parts then, where I've got a few sort of knocks and scratches and the cigarette burn there. So I'll mix up some of this wood filler. It's not car body filler, although I think that will also work. It's a sort of a resin with a hardener there, or the sort of 2-pack affair. And it goes off in about 5 to 10 minutes, which is quite quick, so you can't sort of hang around with it before it starts going too hard to work. So I'll use a spatula like that, or even the mixing one that came with the kit, to move it into the sort of voids there and fill those scratches as much as possible. So I had enough of that stuff then to do these bits, and also a few cracks that I had in the house before it started going hard, which is only like 5 minutes. So that's sort of what's left, and it's totally non-spreadable now. So I'll wait maybe half an hour for that to fully harden, and then set to it with the sandpaper. Should be okay. Okay, so after a bit of rubbing then, all the high spots are off, and it's nice and smooth, ready for painting. And these filled okay, so it feels like it's okay for painting. So yeah, I'll paint those, but it's a bit humid out today, and it's an outside job for me. I just don't really have the room in here, so I'll need to wait for some sunshine. If I can get these warm in the sun and then spray them, then there won't be any moisture trapped in the paint, and they should get a decent finish. So need to wait a few days. So after a few days in the airing cupboard, these keys are nice and dry now, and it's time to put them back onto the key bed. And basically it's the reverse process as you use for sort of disassembly. And what you do is you get one of these springs there, the little notched end there goes in, you feed it in under that bridge, and then it just slides up against that post there, and then the other end sits more or less on the other post, okay? And then what you do is you bring it over to here, and I have to do the black keys first because they're all going to be trapped by these shoulders on the white keys. So, well, first time I did it I forgot and had to, you know, remove a load and start again. So every day's a school day. So what you do is you put the body of the key over that black peg like that, second one, then the hooks go under there just above the after touch strip, and then as you slide it back that spring should catch in the notch, and then slide it back even more until that end hook here engages in there, and then that's your key action. So that's how you do that. I'm going to take it off now and just grease these lightly, just to give it a bit of, or prevent any sticking or rubbing, but generally there's a little bit of play there, but you know, nothing's tight at all, so it should be fine. So all those are on now. One thing to note actually is that there's a big fat C that goes at the right hand end there. That's the top C, and that can be a bit confusing because it's a different shape. So once they're in, then it's just a case of putting the edging strip back on to hold those in place. That just pushes on like that, and then those keys are secured. So the main panel then is not in a terrible condition, but the thing that bugs me was that someone scratched away some of this. Obviously they weren't happy with the performance of the sequencer, and I think it is quite a basic one anyway, so perhaps it wasn't that good, but there's no reason to deface the artwork, is it, really? So yeah, it's a bit scratched up, and they've even put a sort of a level there which doesn't come off, for probably some gig setup they were doing maybe. So I've decided to get a wrap which I found on eBay. There's a guy selling vinyl wraps, and it's a case of taking this paint off, because apparently the wraps bubble up if you leave the paint on after a while, and then using water or spray can with water in to wet the surface, and then you sort of introduce the wrap on, get it in the right position, and then squeegee all the bubbles out, and then it's there. So I'll start to take this paint off now. It's a bit of a sort of a one-way thing really, which is a bit of a shame because it's, you know, it's almost okay, almost in a situation where I could maybe touch it up with some paint, but I think I'll put the wrap on there. It's a red wrap, so I think it'll look really good when it's done. So what you've got to do with this stuff is just key up, rub the paint to key it up. So if there's any loose paint, obviously that needs to come off, otherwise it'll bubble up later on with the vinyl. And then where there's been scratches, or I've gone through all of the paint with the sort of sandpaper, then I'll need to go over it with a black marker pen, because apparently if there's a lot of contrast, you'll see it through the vinyl because it's quite thin, and that's the other reason why you need to take all the printing off. So the big lettering on the back and the labelling for all the buttons and stuff and the logo here, that needs to be taken down or covered up. So I'll go around these edges here with a marker pen just to blacken them up, and here, and hopefully they won't show through also this stuff. Yeah, so you need to get sort of a uniform colour really before putting the vinyl on. Right, so I'm all ready to go with this then, and the key is to peel a bit of this backing off here, and then line that front up with the top of the ridge there, and then I've got to get it sort of centred. I think the length is about the same from there down to there. Bit of overlap for extra, but that means I need to be careful lining this up with this slot for the volume slider. So let's see what happens. So the tools you need for this are a cloth, a rubber squeegee, and that'll be used to sort of get the water out from underneath, and then a sort of a water sprayer. So I'm going to spray water on here, lay this on, or start to lay it on, and then work the water up that way to eliminate any bubbles and get it flat. So first time I've done this, so I'll keep my fingers crossed it'll go well. So I've folded about 2 inches back on the leading edge there, And then I'll wet this now and try and introduce that on there and see if it doesn't crease too much. Should be okay. So not gone too bad for a first attempt, but to be honest, it's not something I want to do again. A real fiddle. It's like if you imagine a very large screen protector on a phone with a curved surface. That's exactly what it is. So yeah, a bit tricky. You can push the bubbles of water around, and also if you're using this squeegee, make sure this is wet because it gives some lubrication so you don't start pulling the surface up. So yeah, move the bubbles towards the holes where you know the holes are. I've got a little bit of a pucker here, which obviously it's sort of not gone too far forward, so I might try and pull that forward a bit without relifting it somehow. But I think when I cut that hole out, that will give me the option to stretch that around a little bit side to side. So if I do that, it's okay for a minute. Yeah, so not too bad for a first try. I think it will dry out as well a little bit. So I'll leave that, I think, now for 24 hours. You can always also use a pin to pop them, the smallest pin possible, and get the water out that way. But obviously you risk having little pin marks everywhere. So I'll try and avoid that. But yeah, not too bad. Right, well, 2 weeks down the line, and I've just trimmed all the holes on this wrap that I've put on here, and I'm not too happy with it. So I put it on once, took it off, put it on again to get better alignment of this, and then follow through with everything else. But when I came to do the holes, then, you know, I've chopped away some of this lettering here, which is a bit disappointing. And to be fair, it is a little bit higher this side. I could have dropped that down about 3 or 4 millimeters and it would have been fine. So yeah, totally my bad on this. And that's really annoying. I'm kind of tempted to just pull it off and do it again. I mean, these here don't look great, but they're for sure I've sort of chopped into the text. So yeah, a bit disappointed. The product itself was really good, actually. I'm pleased with how it went on, and cutting the holes is just as he explained. So Graham, the guy who sold it to me on eBay, he was great in the support with the messages and stuff. So yeah, really nice product, but it's just down to the user, I guess. So yeah, I might pull it off, spray it black and get some stickers. I don't know yet. Also, to cut out the holes then, I just used one of these Stanley knife blades and started on the back on the straight ones, because if you make a mistake there, it's not so obvious. So actually I started here, and you just basically chase the edge against, or the knife against the edge, and you can do small movements to go around corners, around the radiuses there, radii, and then for the sharp corners you can just chase straight into the corner each time, and it's fine. So that's quite easy to do, not too bad. So this is now August, end of August, and a few months down the line actually. Had a few things going on, so I didn't get to touch this for a while. But anyway, I got a new one of these vinyl wraps from Graham, because initially it didn't go on properly, and this one's gone on better. It's still a bit tight on the text there, but I'll let it go, I think, because I can't spend too much time on it. I've lost a bit of adhesive there. I think mainly because of the amount of time I took to mess around with it. There's still a few air bubbles in there as well, but I'll try and get those out later on. So yeah, reassembly has started. So end cheeks going on there on this one, after a bit of spray paint. So let's get going. Okay, so I've got the buttons in place, and I was clever enough to take photos of this before I took it apart, which still not enough photos, of course, because you know you're in a rush, but there's enough there anyway, I think, just to get me in the right place. This panel's on there with all the buttons and the LCD displays in there now. Now the large circuit board's going back on with all the tact switches and things. So I'm slowly getting there. It's a bit of a multi-level sandwich of PCBs, this one, and it's probably, well, it's not really easy to miss things out, but you've got to keep your eye on the job, really, not get too distracted. There's a sea of wires. I remember to plug this one in, and I only think that's the right one to go in there just by this length, you know. It's where that falls out and the natural bend of it makes it sit in that region, so I'm sure that's okay. Anyway, I'll crack on and might even be able to fire it up tonight, who knows. Okay, so as far as I can tell, I've got all the PCBs back in and plugged in the right sockets. So here goes for a genuine first time power up. So got the lead in over there. Let's try the on button. Fingers crossed. There's a little... There you go. Right, so that looks promising. These seem to work. But I'm pretty sure anything that's in the memory from before will be completely messed up because the battery was flat. Some dust in there, damn it, never mind. Alright, that's promising. Okay, so I've managed to sys-ex the factory patches onto the machine, but it didn't get rid of this internal chatter. So it does change its sound depending on what I do to the machine, so you can hear it getting stuff from memory. It does change the sound. Anyway, so what I've got to do now is turn it over, fire it up again, and look at probing the sort of the sound output circuit here to see if there's any way that that's been contaminated by something from the main board. I'm hoping it's something simple, like a bit of dust or a flake of steel or something somewhere, but we will see. So I've had both of these, the main board and this, I think that's the audio amp board. Just guessing really. Had both of those out, checked the caps and just had a look around the circuits. They look okay, just visually, and checking continuity and things. What I've noticed is when it's back in, the hissing I get changes when I move this around, and in particular when I move this ribbon cable around, which is going from that board over to this audio thing here. So I'm suspicious of this now, and actually looking at that, you can see there's some like light portions here. Maybe it's only delamination inside, doesn't it? Oh, got some IPA on there now, never mind. So I'm going to check the continuity between these terminals and the ones over here to see what the resistances are like, and then that might reveal something interesting. So the continuities and things check out on that ribbon, but the only thing I've just noticed is that the little leg there is bent up. It was still conducting when plugged in, so maybe that's just me, my sort of brute force in there, but we'll give it a clean up and try and glue that back down somehow, gently. I shone a light through this as well, and those aren't breaks in the tracks at all, so it's all kind of fine. It might have picked up a few splits here where it's puckered a little bit, so I'll try and flatten that out and see if that makes a difference as well. So there I've added just a tiny film of epoxy under that contact, so it'll glue back down to the film underneath. So I'll come back to that in the morning and see what's happened. So back to the bench then, and yeah, I've had a few sort of weeks away from it really again. So I've looked at the DAC, digital to audio converter. That seems to be working okay. As far as I can tell, voltages, shorts, capacitors all look okay. Now going back to this board, so these, I've just been doing a bit of reading about this, and these are the sort of the sound generation chips, and they're kind of in a chain, and the last one before the signal goes to the DAC is the effects chip, which is an MB, where's it gone? 87405, and these are all 87404, so these are different. That's the effects chip. Now if I put the scope on in between these points, from these chips to this chip and from that chip to that chip, I generally get nothing until I press a key, and then the 0 to 5 volt digital lines start jumping around. However, if I scope these sort of blobs here between this effects chip and the ribbon, then it's noisy all the time. So I'm pretty sure something's not happy here. So I'm going to go around looking for shorts in the board and sort of leaky lines and whatnot, and also check those caps. So a lot of people say that this can be cleaned up by changing these power management caps on there, so I'll have a look at those first. But originally when I checked them out back along, they seemed okay. If it turns out that this thing is broken inside, then I'll have to wait until somebody sells another M1 with another problem, because these are sort of not available now. Anyway, so I'll carry on and have a look at this area here. So as you can hear, there's a lot of interference coming from this, and what you've got here is some voice chips, which are Korg specials. This last one is an effects chip, which does the sort of reverb, echo and filter and all that sort of stuff. And that uses these 5 dynamic memory chips here. And I think this one is not working properly, and it's sending bogus data onto the output here, to the DAC. So what I can do, if I shield those other ones with a bit of cardboard, and then like that, and then spray the cooling spray on that one, and you listen to the effect it has on the sound. Try the next one actually as well, so I'm not sure which one it is 100%. Do them all. So I took one off, this one, and I was a toss-up whether it was this one or that one that was causing the problem in the end. And taking that off hasn't made any difference, so those sort of memory artifacts are still there going on the ribbon line there to the DAC. Nothing physically looks bad about that. And also I can actually put it back on temporarily by sort of straining the legs over so they all contact and pushing it in, and again that doesn't make any difference. So I've got I'll take that one off as well, just to see if that makes a difference. And the replacements come as well from China, so I can hopefully, if that solves the issue by taking this out or changes things significantly, then I kind of know that I can put the new one in that position. So let's see. So that's the middle one taken out there, and the middle memory chip there, and it is so with the first one taken out, obviously it wasn't going to help, because that's where data shuffled to and fro into this one while it does its sort of effects processing before it sends it onto the output lines. So it was never going to help removing these, but after taking, so I took the first one off and it was the same really. Taking the second one off here has given me, or resulting in a big difference. So if you listen to this. So I'll just change patches to shut it up again. But that's made a big difference in the noise output. So my money is still on this middle one being faulty. Now I've got a new one that's arrived, so I'll solder that one in, and I'll put the one that came out of here back in as well, just to see what happens. So the middle one is in, or the new one's back in the middle position now, and as you can see, there's no interference. So you used to get a lot of hissing with that. So I think that's pretty much solved the problem there. So that it was that middle chip. Now I did, because I took 2 out, one of them was okay, but I actually dropped them and mixed them up, so it was a bit chancy which one was the good one, but I managed to put them back in the right place. So I think for this one then, that pretty much wraps it up, apart from getting it all back together and getting the finish right. So I'm pleased to say then that changing that middle RAM chip on the effects chain there near the output side of the board actually fixed the problem, and now it's working fine. So in conclusion then, apart from a general cleanup, checked all the capacitors, they seem fine, replaced all the tact switches, and reassembled everything with a new red vinyl wrap, and I'm quite pleased with it. So thanks for watching. You might recognise this sound from Robin S, Show Me Love.